Thank you so much.
Hi guys, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much. I'd like to call to order at this time the this meeting of the Student Experience and Engagement Committee. Today is June 11th, 2025. The time is approximately 6:09 p.m. And we'll start by establishing quorum at this time. I'll just go on my screen in order here. Representative Johnson Law. I can see Representative Johnson Law. She is present.
I'm present. Sorry, guys. I'm present. Oh Lord. Sorry, guys. I'm on a bus. Abria's 8th grade graduation trip is today, and people are not being kind to us in New York.
No, I'm
Hey.
sorry to hear that. But we're glad to be able to see you here and glad you can hear, what's going on at the meeting. So thank you for joining us despite the fact you're in public transit at the moment and coming back. So thank you. Okay, we'll go with Representative Ting,
Present.
Representative Barnes,
Present.
and then we're also joined by Representative T. Michelle Colson from Ward 4, who is not a committee member, but she's nice enough to join us at today's meeting. So okay, so we'll begin on today's agenda now that we've established quorum with our first discussion item, which is a update on our Safe Passages program. Representative Barnes had asked us to agendize this so we could hear what is going on with the program, what challenges maybe you see. And we've been fortunate enough to have Seada Savoy, who's the director of the program, join us today. So thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours for a presentation.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm joined by my colleague, Jasmine Banab, who will introduce herself. She's the Director of Operations for the program. We are going to kind of give like an overview since the last time we were here about a year ago, just where we are, some updates, where we see ourselves moving forward. And so, again, I'm Seada Savoy. I'm the program advisor for the program. And then my colleague, Jasmine, will introduce herself, and then she'll move on to the slide deck that I hope everyone can see. Jasmine, you're muted if you're talking.
Oh, sorry about that. So again, thank you for having us. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jasmine Banab, Director of Operations for Safe Passages, as well as other public safety initiatives across the district. So we'll just start with, there we go. Safe Passages. So our Safe Passage program, which I'm sure many of you have seen them out there, know about, but just to make sure everybody is in understanding of this, the Safe Passage program supports students as they travel to and from school and in the community. Ambassadors are eyes and ears on students' commutes and are trained to build positive, trusting relationships with students. They're not trained law enforcement officers. To date, for the 24-25 school year, we have a total of 122 routes that we cover across 12 priority areas. We fund through 4 community-based organizations. In total, we have 215 Safe Passage ambassadors. Our proposed 25-26 Safe Passage program, we're hoping to increase our routes to about 129 routes across 12 priority areas and increase our numbers of Safe Passage ambassadors to we're trying to get up to about 258. So hopefully we'll get, close to that next school year. And also, as well, for 25-26, we're also really going to be increasing our training for the Safe Passage ambassadors to have a more robust and holistic approach to this work moving forward. And just by lessons learned as well, and really make sure that they get the proper training they need while they're, on their routes and engaging with the community and students. Some of our highlights for this year. Some of our wins and highlights: students we supported during arrival and dismissal, of course, every day, every school year, rain, shine, snow, sleet, they were out there. We have 96% staffing coverage across all routes and consistent compliance with required morning and afternoon check-ins. We also have a chat that real time we have for our Safe Passage Ambassador supervisors, where they're also checking in with us real time in the mornings and in the afternoons. And just in case they need extra support, they want to flag anything that needs immediate attention, whether it's from our team, from MPD, from WMATA. So we have that ongoing chat every single day throughout the whole entire school year, as well as throughout the summer. For this up to date, we have 642 unusual incidents reported. So every time, we also have a 5:30 call after their shift ends, where each area is reporting out any concerns, any incidents, any wins or challenges that they've had on their routes during the morning and afternoon shifts. And then they have within, I think it's 24 hours, where they have unusual incidents that they need to report, and we have a format and a whole protocol that they follow to make sure that we're tracking all the data, all the incidents that are going on in their routes. Also for this school year, we had the opportunity where two of our grantees conducted spring break programming for students, which I think was great. I think we'll have some videos out shortly. If not, I'm not sure if we have them out yet, but that will be highlighting some of the great work that they were doing. I think in total for both CBOs, they engaged probably about 80 students throughout the spring break week, and which was really robust. And it was during the evening hours when we know that they are, usually don't have that much to do, and we want to make sure that they were engaged. So they really worked hard on engaging the population that they know really needed this extra support during spring break. And they also were provided with dinner as well and snacks throughout the whole spring break that they were off. Our opportunity, strengthening after school and event specific coverage, improve real-time info sharing with schools. That we've really been, that's been an ongoing, consistent, I don't want to say challenge. I know we are making improvements, and I'm hoping this year we'll even improve even more for the next school year on our, how we're going to actually share with schools, making sure that they're getting real-time information as well. And back and forth, right? And really making sure that we have a protocol in place on how we're tracking that information and making sure that they are checking with schools and giving real-time information. And also this year, we're also working with DCPS a little bit more to incorporate ambassadors in more school trainings. So they also we're working on having them so that everyone is aligned. So even if it's the safety squads or the deans of students, teachers, they'll also be receiving a lot of that training to include restorative justice and conflict resolution. These are just a couple pictures. One that we really wanted to highlight was Walk a Mile in My Shoes. They were able to get some tennis shoes where they spoke about, I guess, about why they, a challenge that they had in their life, whether it could be a challenge or a positive impact. And they were able to create shoes, and paint them, whether it was their favorite colors. I know one young man, he loves McDonald's growing up. He gave us a story about the French fries, and he made his shoes were the color of French fries. I'm in there too. Once I went in there, I just got into a zone and really thought that it was a great interactive activity for the students to engage with. And also Safe Passage ambassadors were with them and their supervisors the whole time, spending the whole week with them and walking them through each of the steps. Also, they did entrepreneurship, where they also created their own, another CBO. Each of those young people created their own entrepreneurship, where they were able to create a logo. They also made shirts. And just in that short period of time, if they wanted to create their own small business, what would that look like? And they were able to actually structure it out step by step on what each step was, how they came up with the name of their organization and what services they would provide. One student, a few students actually were really into graphic design. Another one was into, I think they wanted to do more hair. So we don't have pictures of that one, but I know that they even brought someone in that was actually teaching them how to do hair for that week. We were hoping that this will continue on throughout the summer. We're not sure, but if not, they'll be able to try to implement it again next school year. And this was something that was very impromptu, and the CBOs made it happen. We weren't sure if we were going to have the funding, but we did have it. So they really made it happen for these kids. And the kids really enjoyed themselves throughout some spring break. And they were very engaged.
Thank you, Jasmine. All right,
Thank
team.
you.
Before I go to the next slide, I'm going to do like a quick question. Okay, so when we talked about unusual incidents, we have incidents that our ambassadors track. And so I'm going to list the top 3, but I want to see if someone can guess what are the top 3 incidents that our Safe Passage ambassadors see on a daily basis. All right, so here's the list that you have to choose from. Verbal altercation, physical altercation, bullying, environmental, theft or robbery, traffic, attendance issues, or a whole lot of other stuff. So we've got a column called other. So who thinks they know? Okay, so I see a hand raised. Is that?
Can we see the list on the screen, you guys? Can you all, can we see the list on the screen?
I don't think it's ready for the
Can you
screen.
put it in the chat?
But I'll say it again. Verbal, physical, bullying, environmental, theft or robbery, traffic, attendance, or a whole lot of other stuff. So we had to make a column for other.
Representative Ting is taking the initiative to put it in the chat for us, which is great.
Oh, okay.
So that's a good
Ting is-
idea.
Okay, so verbal, physical, bullying, environmental, theft and robbery, traffic, incidents, attendance, and other.
Since I'm competitive, should we all put our answers in there and then you can
Yeah,
tell us
let's
who
see. We're
wins?
gonna do our top 3. What are our top 3? Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my top 3.
All right.
Yeah, well, everybody put their top 3 in the chat, and we'll see who gets the prize.
Okay, yep. So what are our top 3 incidents citywide? So we track our incidents by ward, by CBO, but we also track it by citywide, and bringing all of our incidents together. And so what do you think the top 3 incidents are and that have been collected? All right, see some answers in the chat already.
I think Representative Barnes, you need a third one there. I'm only seeing 3. There we go. Okay, great. See if
Okay.
anybody gets it exactly right.
All right. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So, thank you so much for putting that in there.
We
So
have verbal, physical, traffic bullying, verbal bullying, attendance issues, other environmental, verbal, physical, bullying.
Oh man. All right. The top 3 incidents are, I'm getting ready to show the slide. Can you see them?
Wow.
Yeah. So some people were really close. I think everyone kind of thought like physical was definitely part of it. Jasmine can talk a little bit more about other, like what falls in that category, but physical, we see a lot of things happening that we don't collect here. We're one of the things that we're going to start collecting and making another category. And so let me know, I know we have a lot of young, smart people on this call, but let us know if there's something that jumps out that's not here. But it was brought to our attention that we didn't have anything for sex trafficking, or and so we are going to add that to our list for the upcoming school year. But the top 3 are physical, other, and environmental concerns.
How do you distinguish between the verbal and physical versus the bullying, since there could be like a crossover, you know, on both? Because like bullying would usually involve either a verbal or physical altercation of some sort. How do you distinguish and make that distinction in your data?
So one, we have a data analyst that kind of like that once someone clicks on bullying, we do read what the actual incident was to determine like really if it's something dual or if it's just really just a bullying situation. But we do have all of our categories clearly defined. We share this in the training. We look at bullying as you know, an interaction where you'll, you know, either hear or see someone kind of talking about the way that somebody looks. And you don't necessarily see like the 2 people, maybe an aggressor, and you know, you typically maybe have someone that's maybe a victim, and then you have an aggressor. Where verbal altercations, you could have that same situation and scenario, but things escalate in the verbal altercations where you might hear people cussing, or you might see a more heated exchange.
Yeah.
But young people on the call, let me know, help me out. What do you think about our list that we have? Do we get a thumbs up that this list looks like it's pretty good, where it captures a lot of things that are happening in your schools and in your neighborhoods, in your area, or does this list need some more work?
I think there could be some things about like maybe indications of child neglect. I'm not sure if that's included in safe passage training, but if the kid looks hungry or if they don't look like they look like they don't haven't had new clothes in like many years, or they look really tired,
So that's a
like
very
yeah.
good point. And that actually is under other. We have dealt
Okay,
with
there you
that.
go.
And I can just talk a little bit about other, which is they've seen and dealt with a lot of drug overdoses. They've gotten Narcan training as well, so they're able to help a lot of the individuals. Mental health crisis, they also put under other. Missing or runaway youth, neglect. I think off the top of my head, I don't know, I think a mother had taken her daughter into school, and for some reason, the 4-year-old had wandered outside. So they spent quite a while trying to find the parent, right? You had another young lady that they found out was in a group home. And they could tell that there was, she was wearing the same clothes every day. So they actually got donations and was able to help her and made sure that she had gotten a book bag and clothing. So they actually addressed a lot of that, but a lot of that is under other.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of, whether it's with even MPD, car accidents, everything is listed under other if it's not in this list right here.
But I think, and thank you, Jasmine, for that, for explaining that. That was very clear. But I think looking at maybe calling those out, and because we're tracking all the data to say, hey, maybe we should call out
So
specifically.
maybe there are some, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so that was a very good point that we'll keep on our radar. So thank you so much for that. And looking at the time, I want to move to our next slide. So what's next for Safe Passage? As Jasmine said, we were able to do the spring break programming. Funding is a little bit tight, and so we're hoping to do some type of summer programming, but our main focus for the summer will be making sure that we have route coverage around our summer school sites, our recreation centers, and our hotspots. The good thing about the work that Jasmine does as the director of operations is that when there's something that's going on or a hotspot that just happens, that's occurring, she's able to be flexible and move the routes and make sure that we have staff that are deployed to that area to address those hot spots. So that'll be our focus for the summer. Our request for applications, which is the application where community-based organizations apply to be a Safe Passage grantee, opened yesterday. It's on our website. It's listed on the Clearinghouse website. And so you can definitely check it out for more information. And then our grants will be issued around August. And so we'll be able to share with you who's been awarded and who will be doing the program. Lastly, I want to say, which we probably should have said at the top, is that just to let everybody know that our program in 2024, it transitioned from being a school-based program to a community-based program. And so we are allowing schools who to do the work of providing safety around their school buildings. And we've positioned ourselves in the community, in the neighborhoods, so that we can really capture all the students who are traveling to and from school instead of being at specific schools. So we try to expand our reach. So you won't see us necessarily outside in front of a school. You'll see us in the community. And that's it. Our last slide is if there's any questions, I'll stop sharing so I can see some faces. But if anybody has any questions, feel free.
Thank you, Sienna. And I'll just remind members of the time here. So we'll call on members to do questions. If you could limit yourself to 2 questions or maybe 1 question and then a follow-up. But I just want to thank you again for coming in. We heard a report at the state board about how the safety in the community, students felt safer going to and from school. So I think your program's working. I think this was a great presentation. So I really appreciate you coming in today to give it to us. If it's all right, we'll start with Representative Barnes on the Q&A, since he's the one who requested this agenda item, and then we'll go to Representative Johnson-Law.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining us today. Overall, I truly definitely enjoy what you guys are pushing. One of my questions would be related to the real-time info sharing with the schools. as far as the info sharing, I do believe that it's very important, you know, considering that we are student led, that we involve the students, right? Since this is directly affecting students, how can we involve students? How do we directly correct data from the students on regarding how they feel safe within, like, are we having anything with y'all going into school, talking directly to the students and anything relating to that?
Yeah, so last year I went with the State Board of Education advocates. That agency, we went into schools and talked directly to young people. Ron Brown, because that's where you attend, correct?
I attend Thurgood Marshall.
Oh, Thurgood. Okay. We actually went into Thurgood
Yeah.
Marshall and did a session there
Yeah.
too. We did a few sessions there. But yeah, so and we had young people stand in front of us at Thurgood Marshall and present their concerns about Safe Passage. And then we also did a walkthrough with your team. So they walked us around the building, in the community, around the metro, and showed us, hey, this is what we have to see all day. This is what you guys have to see, you know, when you come to our meetings. And it was really student focused and student led, and so we enjoyed that. Jasmine can talk a little bit more about what came out of that meeting, but we definitely love your point. Should always do more to engage young people, but we have taken some steps forward to do that. But I know that we could definitely do more. Jasmine, you want to talk a little bit more about the Thurgood and some other visits that we went to?
So after the Thurgood Marshall, I know we did a multi-agency task force walk. Following that, probably about 30 days later, just to check in. We also noticed, and we spoke with a lot of the students, that when we did the walkthrough, there were a lot of DDoT assessments that needed to get done, as well as there, a lot of overdoses and drug use over there. So we've been really, we were able to implement and have DBH going out regularly to engage with those individuals. Everything that basically we're trying to make sure that when the students do come out of school, they do feel safe waiting at the bus stop, going to the metro. It's just the process is long, right? And it doesn't happen change is not going to happen overnight. And it has been challenging, but we had a robust schedule, especially with DBH, then MPD, then getting WMATA involved. So I think that we have been seeing, and please, if you haven't seen a big change, let me know. But we're hoping that that there has been some change and that the students feel a little bit safer. And then also from that meeting as well, it just strengthened, I think, the school leadership and the Safe Passage supervisors' communication, where now they communicate more regularly than they were before. They were communicating, but I think we go school by school. Every school is different, right? We have some schools that don't have as much going on, so they may not communicate as much, but then you have more other schools that, they need that constant communication
Right.
to make sure that there's, the flow is going, right? And we know what's going on inside and outside of the school, so we're prepared.
Okay. And then
What are your thoughts?
I definitely agree. I love that you all are doing it, and are going into the schools and, ensuring that these students are well informed of what's happening. I love it. But yeah, I don't have nothing much to say regarding that. But also I would like to just ask if I'm good, Representative Goulet.
One more question, then we'll move to
Okay.
Representative
I got
Johnson.
you. So my last question would be, Jesus was just there. Okay, wait. Jesus. Okay. Okay, yeah. So in relation to whenever we do have incidents regarding, our young people at the station, let's say per se a fight, right?
Mhm.
Because I have not heard anything relating to how the safe patches are to respond to that. I do understand that they are, they're not law enforcement, anything like that, but what is the appropriate response for them to have? And also, how do we ensure that they're beginning to get more proactive than reactive? Because it's oftentimes not preventative measures, it's more so like reactive. If that makes
Do you want to get this out or want me to get?
You go ahead and I'll piggyback off of you.
I
I know
so
we
I
have
think
time.
I'm sorry.
No. So I'll piggyback off you if there's
No, I
time.
think so. That was a very good question, and thank you for that. So that's a tough one, right? Because they can't intervene. Now, what we have seen is, again, that communication with the schools have been helpful to prevent certain incidents. So they might get a flag on something in advance, so they're able to be there and be ready and be able to verbally possibly de-escalate a situation, and vice versa with the schools. So I think that's been helpful. We are working on, again, a more robust training for this year that would
Yeah.
maybe um you know, go towards a little bit more involvement, right? We can't have them do it right now because they're not properly trained. Someone could get really hurt on both sides. But I think just right now that what they've been trying to do is a verbal de-escalation, flagging things when they see it in advance. The school has been very helpful, right? They've been calling and saying, hey, we're hearing this might go on after school or the next morning. That's why we also have the 5:30 calls, right? So our 5:30 calls is preparing us for the next morning. So when we know that we need extra support, we're going to make sure that they have it. Whether it's WMATA, MPD, or even sometimes moving some safe passage ambassadors around. If we need to have more at the Anacostia Station, we know that Anacostia Station is really, we know what's going on. It's a lot going on, right? We know that. We understand that. So we're making sure that we're getting all the support there that we can when we can. But that communication, just like I think, I'm trying to think a couple weeks ago, they heard somebody coming out of the metro saying something was going to happen after school. Another safe passage ambassador actually knew that young person and was able to speak to them about it, flagged it to the school, right? So we were all prepared that day. Nothing happened. So those are the type of things I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We can't really show if it worked or not, right? Because nothing happened. But it's harder to track.
Okay.
And I was there 2 weeks ago and at the Anacostia Station, and they were selling turtles and snakes. I mean, so it's a lot. I think that would probably fall under other. But another thing is that there was also a large group of young people at the Anacostia Station, and I just wanted to point out they were just being kids. You know, so we definitely didn't have to step in. People are just hanging out and having a good time, and so sometimes you won't see us kind of like jumping in there because you see a large crowd. We want kids to be young people and to enjoy their spaces where they can. And so I just wanted to add that, but I know for the sake of time, we're moving on to another
Go to
person.
Representative Johnson Law, I think you're next on the order. Then we'll go to Representative Ting next, and then Representative Colson.
Thank you, Representative Goulet. Hey, you guys. It's so good to see you. Because I just love the work that y'all are doing. So my two questions are, do you just want me to ask them both and you all can just answer them for the sake of time?
Sure.
Okay. And then hold on, I put them in the chat too, so I'm going back
Oh.
to the chat. Wait, I had it.
Oh, environmental. You asked a question about what is environmental.
It was, what do you all consider environmental? And also too, if a school keeps calling me saying, we're not on the safe passage priority list, and I'm just gonna put it out there, I'm talking about Statesman and over
Yeah.
there on Livingston Road. They're
Mhm.
always like, we're not on the safe passage, and Ingenuity Prep is over there. They're not on the safe passage, I guess, priority list. So like if schools that keep calling, they keep having issues, because they had a major issue the week before with Ingenuity Prep and with the neighborhood all at the same time, where we had to get a kid out of there. We had to call the police. There was like a group of teens, I think they had a knife and I think they had a gun, and they were like riding around in the scooters, like looking for a certain child. And it was going on, and it keeps escalating. It dies down, then it keeps escalating. It dies down, then it keeps escalating. And I think it's because it's like 700 kids right there.
Yeah, and honestly, and we aren't there. It's like, and that's a hot spot.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's a hot spot.
So,
why?
I don't
why,
know why.
And then how can we get them on?
We gotta work harder.
Yeah, so right now we're in the process, and this is so timely and so perfect. And so I'm excited that we'll come back to you with our updated safe passage routes once we kind of work together. But we've heard so much about that area. And the schools are doing their best.
Yes, please. We're begging.
Yeah, and so we definitely want to reevaluate our presence in that area because we aren't there. So we have that is on the top of our list to discuss those areas. So to answer your question, when the schools call you, call us because we want to make sure that we give you an answer, and we want to make sure that we reevaluate our routes. We're in the process of reevaluating our routes for next year, and they are on the top of our list to reevaluate. Jasmine's operation team is planning on going out there. We're planning on having some meetings with some of our stakeholders. And so we hear you, and we will definitely provide you with an update in the next, I'd probably say 30 days once we get done doing our evaluations.
Okay.
And then also I heard you talk about like there was an issue with the young man in the neighborhood. So like outside of safe passages as well, right? Please reach out because We also have violence interrupters. We got credible messengers, right? That I also work very closely with. So we can also
Mhm.
come in meanwhile and figure out how we can de-escalate this situation so it doesn't get worse, right? It's not becoming
Yeah.
a school issue that goes into the neighborhood or a neighborhood issue that goes. So please reach out for that as well, because
Okay.
I do a lot of that work with the schools, with the DI. So when we need to bring them in, we'll bring them in, right? We just got to assess the situation, figure out what the next steps look like and what we can actually do to assist. But because you mentioned neighborhood, I think that's very important for you
That
all to
is.
feel like, please reach out. It's not.
Okay. Can I email you guys, because I'm
Mhm.
thinking about Statesman and also Boone Elementary,
Mhm.
like these hot spots that
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
when I say it's get an email from somebody or a text from somebody
Yeah.
once a week about these two spots. So can
Yeah.
I just email you guys?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely email us. Hold our feet to the fire. We just told you today on the 11th, we're having a meeting. It's recorded that we would follow up with
Okay.
you. If you don't
Yeah.
hear from us, say, hey, just want to kind of circle back. So, but definitely
Got
email
it.
us because it is on our radar, but it is helpful to hear from other people too, other than maybe just the school personnel that's been reaching out. So thank you so much for speaking up and addressing that today.
Thank you. And then my other question was, I guess, like, what do you all consider, I guess, like, environmental? I just wanted to, like, make sure that I was clear. I didn't want to have, like, this image in my mind or without making sure that I'm clear about what you all consider environmental.
So with the under environmental, what they flag are like, it could be stop signs down, right? Trees falling,
Okay.
potholes, anything like quality of life issues, right? Abandoned vehicles, abandoned homes, vacant homes that we know that kids sometimes break into or start, hanging out at. All of those are environmental.
Got it. Okay.
Anything that's like quality of life issues as well, because that also, affects their, these kids don't need to see certain things also. Students need to be able to walk to and from school in a clean, safe environment.
Absolutely. So Jasmine, so a stop sign, that wouldn't be traffic?
Well, we don't have a section for that. So like for a stop sign, like they had put it in one time because it had fallen. So that's a 311 request. They put it under environmental.
Got it. Okay. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure. All right. And I'm gonna give up the mic
Everything
and pass
also
it.
they track under 3. We also track under 311. They also they submit the UI, but they also submit a 311 request.
Thank you. Representative Delay, I'm gonna pass it back to you so you can keep going in the order. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Well, thank you for the questions. We'll go to Representative Ting next.
Honestly, Kalika and I were more on the same wavelength on just like the specifics about real-time communication. I was just curious if there's like a standard, like if I'm a safe passage worker and I go to the training, are they training me on how to use like Raptor or like Crisis Go, Share 911, or like one of the more common emergency response things, so that if I see like a gun on the street, I can immediately tell the principal or something.
Yes. So, so yeah, our training does consist of how do you handle crisis intervention? How do you de-escalate a situation? We definitely had to train on people who stash guns because like I was with a team at I feel like it was Kelly Miller, but it wasn't. It was Johnson. And we walked over to a stash spot, and I was like, "Oh gosh, what's the gun here?" So yes, there are. So they are trained on who to call, how to respond. And so this year, yes, training is important. They kind of want more responsibility, but they are the eyes and the ears, and so they are trained on how to respond, who to respond to, how to do an incident report, and how to follow up. But training is definitely ongoing, and it's definitely one of our opportunities that you saw in the slideshow that we're going to be strengthening this year. But I want to say, I know we're out of time, and we've had a lot of questions that please, 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 we definitely want to have a side conversation with you guys. This has been so helpful. And so if there's a time we're outside of a meeting that you guys want to like learn more about Safe Passage, or you have some ideas, we're a phone call, email away. Darren knows how to always get a hold of me because he always does. And so definitely reach out to him.
Can we quickly turn to Representative Colson, see if she has any questions too? I know
Sure.
we're running a little over time here, but this is really helpful and interesting information. Representative Colson, do you want to add anything to this?
I appreciate the opportunity. I don't have questions at this time.
I agree. I just had
Can I just make one comment really quick? Because really quick?
Yes, yeah,
I'm
but I
sorry, I
think,
know we're running out of
no,
time.
no, I just want to make sure I have two quick questions, and then I think Representative
Okay.
Barnes had a comment in the chat there real
But I
quick.
just
So-
wanted to give a little quick example about like, gun recovery, weapons, and that the 911, 311, and how they respond to that. We had a situation where they saw the student stashing a gun in a trash can, right? They immediately called 911. They immediately went to the school. They made them aware because it happened right like in the alley next to the school. They also flagged us, and then they waited on site until MPD came to retrieve the weapon. So I just wanted to let you know, like that's how, and that's happened every time that they have seen a weapon, or anyone stashing a weapon. So that has been, I think, across the board, a great protocol that they've been following that has
Okay, great.
worked.
Wonderful. I mean, my quick questions, and I'll make them brief, is the first question would be, what performance metrics do you use in evaluating the CBOs and then the individual workers? So how do you measure what defines success for the organization and the individual?
So we have a standard operating procedure manual, and so the grantee is evaluated on a set of performance metrics. A lot of those look administrative, like timely reporting, making sure that they're spending money based on the fidelity of the money that we've provided to them. And then there's so that's the grantee administrative side, and then we're also do regular site visits where Jasmine and team with operations and myself, I go out once a week. We're also in real time, just kind of like sitting in our cars. No one knows we're coming, and we're doing site visits to kind of monitor just to make sure that the Safe Passage ambassadors themselves are holding up to the standard. Are they walking their routes? Are they engaging with young people? Are they wearing their uniform? Is their ID displayed? And so we do have metrics to kind of show, like during our site visits, we have metrics for them for the on the administrative side to make sure that they're spending the money appropriately. We also do quarterly reports. There's ongoing monthly reports that they have to submit. And so we look at all of this in performance, and we have a metrics that we use to determine risk level. And so if someone doesn't perform well, we can go through the correction action process, or they could be put on a higher risk level and may not be eligible for a Safe Passage grant the following year.
And Representative Barnes had a good point in the chat here. He had mentioned about how do you ensure that the students feel safe to approach the Safe Passage workers? So what type of training do you use to create that trust between the students so they feel comfortable reaching out to the workers if there's an issue that they feel they need to report?
So the Deputy Mayor of Education has a youth institute who we lean on for engagement training. We also and so we really use that training that they provide on a regular, and we do engagement training monthly, but really it's just the site visits because, going out, and Jasmine can tell you, we go out on a regular basis, just seeing a smile goes a long way. And so if we see a Safe Passage ambassador that's kind of like standing off to the side, not even smiling, not engaging in real time, we address those. It's the smallest thing and that's what we teach in our training. I do a training on engagement. We use DME, Deputy Mayor of Education's training, and we also do site visits because you're gonna have to see it in real time. Because even though we're sitting in a training and I'm saying, hey, you've got to smile, and hey, make sure you wave. We were at a school and I said, hey, I stood at the entrance for 20 minutes and watched kids coming in and out of the cars, and I didn't see the team. And so in real time, I had to bring everyone here and then model the behavior. We also train our supervisors so they can model the behavior, but it's really about getting out and just kind of engaging and seeing for yourself. And then, like we said, emailing us any concerns. We take those concerns seriously. We deploy a team out right away of any concerns that we get if there's that engagement piece. But for schools, I would really lean on some of the young people on this call, because I think we need to do a better job when it comes to engaging young people and making sure that they do feel safe. I mean, you might see somebody in a green vest and their ID, but do you feel safe approaching them? And so that's one of the things that we talk about a lot, and we talked about in the surveys when I went out to the schools. How do you feel safe enough? And the feedback that we got was like, we want to see them more in the buildings. We want to see them outside of maybe just walking. Like, how can we get them inside the building, maybe doing a training or maybe doing our lunchtime shifts? So we're kind of thinking about those things to implement for next year.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, even like them coming into the building to introduce themselves.
Right.
I'm so and so. I'm here, here's a little bit about me, and then the child knows. I think that's great feedback. I want to thank you both for coming in. My last question really is there anything the board can do either statutorily or regulatory to help you with your mission? Is there anything that we could do to help you, continue the success of this program or expand its success?
So I would say, again, our RFA just came out. We're looking for community-based organizations that are capable of doing the work. And so if you have any community-based organization, one that's interested in applying, please provide that information to them. Two, I would say we're always looking for trusted adults to do the work. We're looking to increase. And so we have had, again, 215. We're looking to increase to 258. And so if you know adults who are, maybe parents or, have the flexibility to have that split schedule, working in the morning and the afternoon, it's a 5-hour shift Monday through Friday. Let us know and we can send that information to the grantees so that they can hire, staff who are trusted and deeply rooted in the community. And then the third one was Darren was a great peer reviewer last year. And so I've asked him to say, hey, would you be interested in being a peer reviewer? And that's somebody who looks at the applications at the time that they come in and helps us determine if they're a good fit for the program. And so those are the 3 things I think that would be helpful. Looking to employ staff, being a peer reviewer, sending out our applications so that people can apply.
Well, I want to just thank you one last time for both coming in. Ziada, Jasmine, thank you. Really helpful presentation. Thanks for staying for questions. Is there anything else that either of you'd like to say before you continue your day here?
Please email us if you have any more questions, or if you want to just have a Q&A. We're happy to support. I think my question to your team would be about the safety squads. So the Deputy Mayor of Education oversees like the safety squad teams, and they are similar to the work that we do, but they're located around the buildings. And so I would just invite you or encourage you to have that team on as they're developing. And I can, send it there in an email just so that we can see what it looks like across the board when it comes to safety. They're in expanding into possibly the elementary schools and middle and high, and have a reach because it's staff members that are working in the building opposed to us who have to hire. So next time we come on, I'd love to have us all on here talking about what that looks like across the board when it comes to safety.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
We'll let you go.
everybody.
Thanks for coming on, and then we'll go to our next agenda item then. Have a great day.
Thank
Maybe
you.
Stay on the meeting if you want. I'm not kicking you off, but you may
No.
have other things you want to do. So
Thank you.
okay, wonderful. All right, they decided to Jasmine, are you staying for the rest of this? You're welcome to stay if you want.
Bye, Jasmine.
Hi.
We love you.
I'll stay for a little bit.
Okay, great, wonderful. We're glad to have you.
Aw.
All right,
This is why we love. This is why we love Jasmine.
we'll go to Dara Shaw next for her presentation on the issue that how the partnerships that we can build working with you. So I'll let you take it away next, and then we'll let members ask questions if that works.
Great, thank you so much. And Jasmine, I'm glad that you're staying as well, because I think that there's connections to be made too. And can I have a time check? I just want to make sure that I am keep on track with what you guys have in mind.
I mean, we typically limit these to an hour, but we're making an exception today because there was an incredible amount of engagement. So you have the floor for as long as you need.
Wow.
We're here to listen to you. I mean, if it gets to be over an hour or something, I mean, maybe we'll weigh in at that point. But I think you have the floor for as long as you need it.
Never. Again, thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Dara Shaw. I'm the director of the DC Education Research Collaborative, which I'm going to introduce to you and tell you about what we do, who we're made of, what we're for, and best yet, how we can continue to work together. And Darren, thank you so much for the invitation as well. I'll say that I am, I've been at the collaborative for about 3 years, but prior to that, I was the executive director for research and data at the Maryland State Department of Education, where we worked very closely with our State Board of Education on all the research and data that they needed in order to make decisions to the benefit of all the public school students. So this is a position that I very much appreciate being in. And also what
Michelle,
feels like,
if members could mute while you do the presentation, I'm just hearing maybe a bit of background noise. So if anybody could mute, just so we can fully hear your presentation. Thank you so much.
thank you. And what feels like a million years ago, I was a teacher at Coolidge, a math teacher. So if I sound like a math teacher a little bit when I talk, it's it comes from there. But that's how I started my career, both in education and in Washington, D.C. So I'll go through quickly what we are and the kind of work that we do, because really what I'm here to do is introduce us so that we can have opportunities to work together. So we are a research practice partnership. We are a partnership broadly on one side with the city's education providers and education leaders. So that includes the State Board of Education, includes OSSE, it includes DCPS, PCSB. I'll show you the actual list in a second. But we are a partnership here with the city's education providers and here with the city's research institutions and universities. The idea is that often education providers and leaders find themselves faced with decisions and thinking, if I only had information about X, if I only had data about Y, then I could make an informed decision about whatever it is that's on your docket, whether that's Safe Passage or new math curricula or whatever. So on the one hand, you have the providers saying, if I only had information about X, then I'm just waiting to make a decision. I just need more information. On the other side, you have research institutions and universities that traditionally are, and I say this with love and affection, but tend to be disconnected from the communities in which they actually work. They're thinking about making research publications that will have implications across the nation, and they're not thinking very deeply about the immediate needs of the education practitioners and leaders in the community where they are. We exist to bring those two together. So we bring together the people who conduct the research, mostly university professors, with people who will use it, which is you, and people who will be affected by it, which is the educators and the students, to generate actionable information. And if it happens to have some kind of national implication or get published in a journal, cool. But that's not what we're here for. So how does this actually work? We have three components of our collaborative. The first is our advisory committee. They represent the community at large, but by community, I'll go in again, give me like 30 seconds to say more about that. But they hold us accountable to what decision makers, leaders, educators actually need. So they help us figure out our projects. They help us figure out our topics. The researchers who actually conduct the research, they crunch the numbers, so to speak, but they don't get to pick the topics, because all of our topics must come from a demonstrated, articulated need from education leaders such as yourselves, education providers, the city agencies, and the education practitioners, and also community members and advocacy groups. So the advisory committee is where our ideas come from. The research council are the institutions that actually execute the projects. And then we have staff at Urban Institute. We say that Urban hosts the collaborative. So I'm an employee of the Urban Institute as director of the collaborative. And my job is to actually put those two things together, to put the need together, the needs of the community and the students together with the people to actually do the work, and also with the data in order to answer those questions. So I told you I'd tell you exactly who our members are, and here they are. First, we have institutional members. These members were established by legislation by the City Council. As you can see, the State Board of Education is one of our institutional members. And we have already talked with, I don't want to say Robert because I know you guys are more formal than that, although maybe not at 7 p.m. Representative Henderson, and also with Darren as well. And so institutional members represent each of these institutions or agencies. You all appoint your own representative. It's up to you to swap them out. And they serve as the point of contact between you and us, but they don't have to be the only point of contact. We think of them more as the facilitator and not as a gateway of information. So setting up opportunities like this to talk to you as a committee is exactly what the representatives do. It's not like, oh, you have to go talk to so-and-so. So these are institutional members. And then we also have we have 12 at-large members they must live and work in the district. And they come from a broad swath of representation. So we have school leaders, we have principals and assistant principals, we have teachers, we have DCPS alumni, we have families and advocates from across the city. And so that is the broader set of, I said, where our ideas come from and how they get focused into research projects. That's where they come from, is the advisory committee. The research council are the ones who actually do the work or crunch the numbers, so to speak. And I probably wouldn't even have to put this list up, because if I just said name every university in the district, here they are. But they are all members of our collaborative. Here is how you can, not you, I mean, you personally, but also here is how anyone, can work with us. Ideas, opportunities, needs, and questions come directly from you, i.e. our partner agencies, our practitioners, our city leaders, and our advisory committee members. Ideas get focused by our research agenda, which our advisory committee helps set. And then the yellow box is us actually doing the projects. And then these inform action steps, actual actionable relevant research. This is really important to us because I've spent a lot of time at a state education agency, and nothing makes me crazier or more likely to ignore something when it's showing me something that some researcher thinks is smart. And then at the end, it says, we don't really have any actual recommendations for you, but policymakers should find our findings very interesting. And we're like, no, I don't. Put this one on the shelf. And so this green box is very important to us, where how do we make sure that our work is relevant and actionable? We start with questions that people want to know the answer to. And so that's the blue box. So how does this actually work? The blue box is where do ideas come from? Some of this, again, can come from, we do brainstorming sessions at our collaborative meetings that Representative Henderson attends, but we do that about once a year. We also have meetings, probably not like this one, because I know it's almost 7 o'clock, but hopefully the next time we talk, which is where we connect with our agencies and our city leaders and say, look, here's exactly how the meeting will go. We sit down and we say, and I will say, tell me about your 6-month goal and your 6-year goal for DC's public school students. And what do you need to know in order to achieve that goal? What information are you missing? I'm not here to tell you what the goals are. I'm here to help you achieve whatever goals you have set. So this is where ideas come from. That's the blue box. Next, they are focused by our 5-year research agenda. Our research agenda is on purpose, very broad. Here are our main focus areas. There's more detail on this on our website, but you would be pressed to come up with something that did not fall under one of these topics. But it is very important to our advisory committee that not only do you have to fall under at least one of these focus areas, but you must fall under focus areas 1 and 2. Because we have a very equity forward research agenda. But as far as the topic, safe passage to school or early childhood or whatever you name the actual topic, it fits under here. Okay, so the blue box is our giant bucket of ideas that can come from anyone, anywhere, anytime. Although, like I said, I'm strategic about meeting with our partners as well. Get filtered through our research agenda, and then it actually becomes a project. So how do we go from like the giant bucket of ideas to the things that we actually analyze and publish? We need all 4 of these boxes. Number 1, there has to be a need for information. Someone needs to know the answer. I already talked about this. Number 2 is researcher expertise and capacity. We need to have somebody from our research institutions available and able to do the work. That's not a problem. With 13 members of every university in the district, there's a very deep bench. So I put it on here to say that we need somebody to do the work, but this one is not really a problem. Data access. We have a data access platform that we have built that allows researchers to come in, see the data that they need, use it, and only that. We also have a master services agreement with OSSI. So we are able to request from OSSI any existing administrative data. As I'm sure you know, there are plenty of questions that are not covered by OSSI data. If the data exists somewhere else, that's not OSSI, but the data already exists, then we will work with whatever agency, wherever the data, quote unquote, live. And if the data don't exist, then we will work with the agency or whoever is managing the thing that we want to study in order to figure out how to collect that data. And then the upper right is new or existing potential support. We receive a little bit of money from the city to do short turnaround projects. So projects that use data that already exists, that we already have. And we have quite a bit of flexibility. We also have some other funding from foundations that again, like lets us do, I'll say like short and medium term projects on the order of 3 to 6 months. Anything larger than that, we have to raise money for it, just like anybody else does. Or any other nonprofit organization does. An example of this is we have a 4-year, $3 million grant from the Institute for Education Sciences to study current technical education. And so, you know, anything on the order of years, major projects, we need to fundraise just like any other researcher does. I'll skip this. Actually, I'll say this real briefly, that in addition to what I'll call traditional research, which is ask a question, do some data analysis, come up with an answer, and research. We are also available to do other stuff. You just have to ask us. So this could be supporting something that a partner or a school or you or whoever is already doing, but you want somebody to just crunch some numbers, but it's your work. Or you're looking for like a research assistant, basically, who can guide or advise. So there's a lot of like, I call this research adjacent or research support that we can offer, because to us, we just want good research that makes outcomes better for DC students. It doesn't actually matter to us whether we do it or we support somebody else doing it. And so we have examples of things like this where we've hosted convenings, or I had the great pleasure and privilege of working with a group of students from Czech, where they wanted to collect their own data on something that they were working on. And their principal came to us and said, could you have someone be an advisor to the students project? And that one, I don't often get to raise my hand and like be the researcher, but as the former math teacher, I couldn't resist. So that's one of the favorite things that I've done so far. But so we do these research adjacent things, and people just have to ask. So once we complete a project, again, this is now the green box. It informs action steps. And this is also where we work with our advisory committee, also engage people in communication throughout the lifespan of each project. If a project touches on something that you are interested in, you're not going to hear about it at the end. And in fact, just last night at our advisory committee meeting, we presented some very early findings on work that we're doing on attendance, chronic absenteeism, where it's way earlier in any project cycle than you normally see data or results. But it's important to us to bring things to our advisory committee early so that you can, so that we make sure that once we get to the final report that it's useful, that it's not a surprise. Okay, so last slide. The last thing I want to say is just broadly, there are some ways to stay passively connected to us, which is just visit our website and subscribe for updates, which we do very infrequently. But anytime we publish something, which is at the end of our cycle, you get it through that subscription, which again is, once every few months. Most of the action is on LinkedIn, where we'll post, more like what we're working on or things like that. But again, it's kind of more like passive of just you guys finding out what we're up to after we've already started it. But the best way of staying connected to us is to continue a conversation, hopefully, that we're starting right now, which is either to work directly with me or through Darren or through Representative Henderson, about having that needs sensing conversation where we sit in a virtual circle. And again, I say, like, what are your short and long-term goals? And what do you need to know in order to accomplish them? So that we can start to plan for things that we might be able to answer to you. So that's the active way of staying connected. But even beyond that, there's these two, our website and LinkedIn are ways to just figure out what we're up to. So that's it. I'll take these down. Oh, thanks. I see this in the chat. And I'll pause for questions. Again, like, I wish, except I know that it's 7:12. I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, so tell me what you want to know.
Well, we're not tired. I've been drinking energy drinks all day, like is the bad habit that everybody knows I have. So I'm just getting rolling now. So I want to thank you for that great presentation and for coming on today and staying with us, even though it is after 7 o'clock. So I was going to kind of give you some ideas I had, and then we'll turn to other members. And then I think what might be helpful is, based on your knowledge of kind of what you do, maybe we could then follow up and see what you think might be a good project based on what we give you. And I think with the eye on what you talked about is making sure that it's relevant and that we can then have some actionable steps, whether that be that we produce a report and a resolution that really creates change in the agencies, whether it's something that we can work with ASEAN to change academic standards, or something where we could introduce legislation potentially. So I think those would be the three paths where we could really put into effect what you come up with. So I'll tell you what I had, and one of them is going to be Representative Johnson Law's idea from the chat. I'll start with that one. She mentioned the idea of looking at equitable education for students with disabilities, making sure we have access to buildings, access to a high quality education for students with disabilities. So that would be one thing to take a look at, obviously identifying where the gaps are in that too and how we close them. The second thing I had on my list, you already, I think, checked off because you talked about research you're already doing, and that was on chronic absenteeism and truancy. That's a hot topic, a big issue the city's been working on. So I think you may already be doing that, so that may not be something we would explore. The other issue I'd like to look at is the issue just of general safety, and whether that relates to bullying or continuous solutions on that. We heard from the DC Policy Center the students are starting to feel safer going to and from school, which is good news, but that they actually still felt less safe in the school. So how do we, ensure that students feel safe? That may affect truancy and absenteeism. It may not. Your research may show that, but I think how we close that gap. And then I think it's timely we have Representative Coulson on, because we were just also referred the issue of trying to tackle addressing the challenges of homelessness for youth in our educational system, and the myriad of issues that being homeless creates for trying to then obtain a high quality education in DC. So that might be another place we could partner. So I guess those are three areas that I've come up with: homelessness, Representative Johnson Law's idea on trying to address gaps with students with disabilities, and then any issues with safety and bullying. So those could be possible research areas to work with you on. I'll turn it over to Representative Johnson Law next. So do you want to add anything to what you already mentioned in the chat?
No, because there's a lot of things with special education. I was thinking about the disaggregated data, like when it comes to like them graduating, and like certain data in regards to like how they're doing like post-secondary, and how we're like following up with that to make sure they have opportunity and to make sure that it's equitable. Because I know OSSE has some data, but then there's some data that they actually don't have. And if you guys bear with me for a second, I asked Hannah this. I asked from the DC Policy Institute. I said, does OSSE report out if students with disabilities yet are graduating? Yeah, like how many of them are graduating with a certificate, like versus a diploma? And then kind of following up with that post-secondary data. So that's where I was thinking. But sorry if it's a lot of noise. We're at a rest stop. But freak, where did the kid go? No. Sorry guys. Okay, lost kid, mom mode.
You're
Go back on
good. We
mute.
can hear you just fine, Representative Johnson.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Johnson Law, for expanding upon what we discussed earlier. So I'll go to Representative King next, and then Representative Barnes.
I just wanted to like lay on the table as well this student advisory committee. We had 90 people sign up this year. Averages around 20 to 40 students there from across the city. I think all the wards, and it's a monthly meeting on the second Monday of every month at 5 p.m. and maybe talk to, I think Darren will still be the liaison next year for that, and it's a super helpful way to get information. If you are ever looking for more ideas, we also made an SAC report, which Darren made look very great. And that talks about common issues that DC students face and what solutions they're thinking about.
No, that sounds amazing, especially the not just the the issues, but also the solutions. Some of the work that we were doing with the Czech students really focused on deprioritizing the solutions that the adults thought were going to address the problems that the students had raised. Things that in the minds of the school administrators were, well, why wouldn't this work? Of course, it's a great idea. But then actually, the students were able to say, you're missing the point here. So love that, and would definitely welcome the opportunity to connect further. Here we go. Awesome. Thank you, Darren.
That would be great, and maybe that would help inform a project that we could do in the fall, working with the student advisory committee, because I think they will reconvene. Did they reconvene in September or October? Dr. Fletcher?
September.
September. Okay, great. This is the last committee meeting for our great SAC students. They are sadly leaving us for bigger and better things after this meeting, but I think that would be a fantastic idea by Representative Ting to have also gather ideas from the students in the fall. So Representative Ting, anything else you want to share? Okay, great. We'll go to Representative Barnes next. Any further ideas for the partnership? And Representative Barnes, you're muted if you're trying to speak, but you may not be able to at the moment. So if you are trying to speak, take yourself off mute. Okay, we'll go to Representative Coulson next. Any other ideas, Representative Coulson, to discuss and follow up with?
No, you spoke to my topic that's always on top of my mind. I do want to say thank you for the presentation. It's great. And like you, I'm disappointed once I read through research and find that there aren't any recommendations. So definitely look forward to collaborating and coming up with some great recommendations and seeing them implemented. Thank you.
Great. So this was extremely helpful. Thank you, Dara, for joining us here. Dr. Fletcher, what should be the next step here? Is there anything else you want to share with us, Dara? Any instructions on how we should proceed? Should we kind of discuss these ideas further, maybe offline, and then meet with SAC in the fall? What would you recommend?
I would definitely love to meet with SAC in the fall. So put that in the definite category. And then I think I think it's a great idea for you internally to figure out what the best next step would be to help focus some of these ideas and to help prioritize and also understand, again, like what some potential data sources would be, because and timeline. I think, Darren, you mentioned this too, like it has to be on a timeline that's useful, and collecting new data is a very different timeline from using data that we already have. And so I would love for you to maybe discuss internally what the good next step would be. That could be one-on-one conversations, or I know you have open meeting rules and things like that. It could be one-on-one conversations. It could be relaying information to Representative Henderson. It could be I've had the one-on-one conversation with him. Again, that same, like, what are short and long-term goals and what do you need to know in order to do that? But how best to expand that conversation within your processes and procedures.
Would there be a way maybe you could give us guidance? Because I think in your chart with the 4 boxes, you mentioned, that you need researchers who are available and doing the work to be able to achieve it. With those ideas we mentioned, and then the others you may get from the SAC in the fall, like, do you know what work is being done out there? So maybe you could say, well, there's not anything actively being done on this issue, but we do have available data because it piggybacks well with what this university is doing on this. So maybe that's the topic. Because I think we have ideas, like we've mentioned, I think 4 of them tonight. SAC will have new ideas, but you may be able to say those are all good ideas, but here's something that's really ripe for action because we've got a university that's tackling this in the fall already. And that would be the one to piggyback on, because resources are also an issue. As you mentioned, if we're going to try to go, big on a research project, that's, we need to have researchers and money to do it. So I think that would be what would be helpful to me is maybe, as you hear these ideas, if you can kind of connect to your network of people and what universities are doing starting in the fall, maybe that's how we decide what we go after, because then we can work in partnership with them on something that really can take shape over like a 6-month period and actually get something done in that period of time. Does that make sense at all? Because I think these are all great ideas, but we could spend years talking about the challenges and the great ideas, but if we don't have the bodies and the money to do it, we're not going to get anything done.
Yeah. So I always say that the bodies, the money, and the data it's literally my job to worry about. That four square thing, it used to be a Venn diagram, but all the words didn't fit in there. And I said, like, my job is to figure out where the middle of that is. And so, yes, absolutely. A lot of how I do that is by listening. And so having these more open conversations helps me figure out the universe of things that are foremost on your mind and on your agenda. And then I have already had these same conversations with the universities. And so that helps me match it up. And then that can also go exactly what you said. It can also go the other way, where I say I have a university or a researcher who's already working on or already interested in doing work on X, Y, and Z. Is this something where you'd like to connect? So I do both. It goes both ways every time we do it.
And the other thing we're doing is we're giving you ideas, I think, that fall within the purview of this committee, which is student experience and engagement. I mean, you may have like just a incredible project that you're doing, let's say on college readiness or something like that, or career readiness that a university is going to work on in the fall. That wouldn't be in this committee, but you may say, hey, this is the one that we should try to partner on. And, you know, as much as I would enjoy working with you, if you feel that that's more ripe and another committee then should take that on, just because it's in that purview, that's fine too. I think we really would benefit is you telling us what's out there and how we can get something really important done based on what's already going on. Because I think if we try to recreate the wheel, yeah, we're going to be still talking about this. So.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Darren and I have talked about too, because there's a lot of work happening about attendance. And so again, like part of my job is making sure that we don't duplicate anything. And I also want to be clear that when you do a project like with us, we're the ones doing the work.
Right.
So we have partners with agencies or leaders or whoever, but it's in an advisory capacity, or sometimes they're our data source where, you know, we're partnering with DCPS because they're the ones with the data and they have expertise in the program. But we are the ones who are actually forming the research questions and the analysis plans. And then we'll come back to our partner, and I call it ground testing our plan and ground testing findings. Does this make sense? Is this useful? We found this weird thing. What do you make of it? Does what we found jive with your experience? So that is what the partnership looks like. And so it's not, I don't want you to think like, oh, there's a grand onus on you to do the work. You are our, for lack of a better word, like client or customer, because you serve DC's public school students. And we're here to make your decisions a little bit more informed.
Well, this is helpful. Is there anybody else who has any follow-up questions or anything, Dr. Fletcher, anything else you want to add to the discussion before we move on? Well, Dara, thank you again for coming on. We can't wait to work with you on this, and we want to get something that really is actionable. So thank you for joining us, and we'll follow back up with ideas and then get something together, hopefully for the fall.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation.
All right, thank you. You're welcome to stay on if you want to hear the rest of our agenda here, but I don't know if given the lateness of the hour, if that's something that you may have other things to do. So thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you being here.
I need to leave my office eventually.
Oh, that's a good thing to do. Very good. All right, well, have a great rest of your
Thank
day,
you.
and thank you for being here.
Thanks,
Okay,
Sarah.
so we'll move then to the next item on the agenda. I think we will pick up speed here. Representative Coulson, do you want to do a quick debrief? Apologize, my dogs are barking. This is the daily routine of the mail arriving, and they have to alert me to that. So, but never once has the mail carrier broken into the house yet. So they're doing their job to keep me safe. The Student Experiencing Homelessness panel, next steps for that. Representative Coulson, do you want to start on this topic?
I can start, but as you know, I missed last week's working session, so I did peruse over the notes. I will be interested to hear what the consensus was, I guess positive, since we're now including this. And then I can share with you some of my thoughts and takeaways in terms of what we can possibly lean into next.
So on this topic, I thought it was a really good working session. We just did a quick recap of the panel, and then I think at the request of Representative Williams, Representative Patterson then referred it to our committee. The issue of homelessness and students experiencing those challenges and how we really react to that. So there wasn't a clear mandate on specific issues. It was more the topic was referred to the committee to discern next steps. I think at that point, then I made a petition to try to get you on as a member of the committee, given your expertise in this area. So I'm going to keep working with Representative Patterson and yourself on that idea, particularly since we'll be down to 3 over the summer. So we would love to kind of work with you on that. I think the consensus was this is a really serious issue. We had great testimony from the experts at the panel, but it was going to really be up to the committee to decide kind of what angle we wanted to try to approach this with. And there's so many different factors that I think stem from youth homelessness, like what do we want to try to tackle first? And maybe it's working with the research collaborative on this. So I think it's open-ended, and I think it's probably a discussion that we'll continue to have in one-on-one meetings. But if you want to kind of give us your ideas either now or maybe at our next committee meeting, we start kind of laying out a work plan on how to try to tackle this issue with some key things you think might help improve the conditions for youth experiencing homelessness. I think that would be the way to go. So like, what are your thoughts on what you think next steps should be? Does that sound like a good plan, or any ideas to change it?
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. I think that more research is always welcome, but I think we have enough, including what's already out there and then what we gained from the panelists. One thing that I will add on top of what we already know, just from my experience with boots on the ground, is that I don't believe 2 things are happening. One, that the community is informed on what homelessness is by definition, as they spoke to during the hearing. So I think somehow we should be pushing for a greater explanation. And then 2, the other thing is that oftentimes the homeless liaisons are voluntold to take on this additional role, and it's usually the social worker. So as you can imagine, the social workers are already stretched thin, and to have this additional task that is not really something that fits within their job description. So that's not really something that they are often evaluated on or held accountable for. I think that's something that we can look into. And then also the number of times that homeless liaisons are meeting and receiving training. I think that's something specific to the homeless liaisons. But as it relates to the students and the experience that they're having, I think the number one concern that I believe to be true prior to the hearing, and it was echoed during the hearing, is transportation. So what can be done to support getting students to school, which then again ties into truancy. But then the other part of transportation is safe transportation, because many students still express concern with riding the metro and things of that. So those are the things that come to mind initially, but I'm open to hearing other avenues that people may think we should explore first.
Well, that sounds great. I think you've got us off to a good start there. And the transportation issue does sound like something that we could then tackle with a resolution or even potentially legislation or a ask to an agency on a funding request. So I think we start there and then continue working on this at the next meeting. And hopefully with you as a member. I'm going to keep mentioning that. And Darren, I got to say, your cat looks so foreboding. It looks like it's like almost like a specter there as it goes back and forth. It's very impressive. So I have nothing else on the topic of youth homelessness. Anything else you want to share, Representative Colson? I think that was really informative, and I'm excited to work with you on it to see how we address the transportation and then other issues. But I wanted to just open it up to other members too, see if there's anything they wanted to add, and then
And let me add this one more thing. And again, thank you for the invitation to join. I do want to say that just informing the school community about the assistance that we already have. I think that would be the low-hanging fruit, and then pushing for transportation. But I have to be honest, transportation is already an issue with special education students. So I'm not sure how we can, not to say that it's impossible, of course, but just keeping that in mind, that that's already a concern that we have.
Can I jump in here really quickly, just to
Yes, of course.
point out that we can follow up with different agencies. So if you have specific questions, we can work with you on that to reach out to those agencies. Another thing is the C committee is working on a student listening session, Representative Coulson, starting in October, and another one in February when they returned back from winter break. But part of that, our committee was talking about possibly going into schools and talking with students, or going to places where students are. But maybe that's something also, listening to homeless liaisons at the school level and just hearing their experiences, and just maybe what they need at the a central office, for example. But I wanted to just throw that out there in case you might have missed the listening session conversation.
I did miss that, and I think that's a great idea.
Okay, great. Anything else from anyone on this topic before we move to our final agenda item? Okay, so lastly, we'll just talk about what we got planned for the August engagement meeting, or the committee meeting, I'm sorry, with the C committee. Representative Fleischer, or Dr. Fleischer, I'm adding you to the board here. Dr. Fleischer, would you like to kind of go over some of the ideas we'd already talked about for that, and then we can, have members react to that and see where we go?
Yes, for the so our next meeting would be August 13th. And so there are a number of things that could be done offline before then, including, the listening session planning, as well as the follow-ups. There are over 100 clauses related to C committee work. And so it's just a matter of putting it together and being creative about not overburdening members, but also selecting a few that we can, that are manageable and we can follow up on with offices and create next steps. So that's something that could be offline. Those two items, the listening session planning and the follow-up, the resolution follow-up report, those are two things that could be done offline between now and our August meeting. Also, Dan Davis and Kimberly Humphrey from the Office of the Student Advocate and the Office of the Ombudsman will be speaking at our August 13th meeting on the work that they're doing within the communities. And
given the engagement we had today, maybe we want to plan for an hour and a half for that one at least.
Yeah,
of our traditional
absolutely.
hour time, just
I'll
because
make
I
sure to
think,
do that.
and then the last thing I want to just make sure we have on the agenda is Representative Best Civics Week resolution that we were going to have on today's agenda, but he wasn't able to attend today's meeting, so we'll bring that back at the very next meeting. So without any objection from members, we'll put that directly on the agenda for the next meeting and vote that out of committee at that time, so it can be then ready for the fall, if that makes sense. Are there any other, I'll open the floor here to anybody who wants to come off mute and chime in for other ideas for the next agenda for the committee meeting in August.
If nobody is, one other thing is if T. Michelle or Representative Coulson wants to return and continue that conversation, if that's okay, Representative Goulet?
Yes, all members are always welcome at our committee meetings. I mean, they just can't vote on committee business unless they're an official member. hopefully if I, can convince Representative Colson and President Patterson to get that resolution moved, we can just revise the committee membership. Quickly, we may not do it. We have to do it twice though, because we're going to add student reps. I mean, as much as I would love to be able to say we could have Representative Ting and Representative Barnes participating still from college, reality is setting in. You're off to the real world to do bigger and better things. So we're going to see which committees our new student reps want to sit on, and we're going to need to amend this committee to add them to it. So we may wait to then add Representative Colson officially at that one, but she is always welcome to be at our meetings, and we welcome her here for that. But we will be moving, I assume, a resolution to add the student reps to the committees in the fall, and we could take care of it at that time if she still wants to be a part of this committee. So
Sounds
that
good.
works well for me. Anything anybody else wants to add for August? And Representative Colson, we hope you do join us for August. We'll make sure you get the invite. Anything else? Speak now, forever hold your peace. All right, wonderful. Is there any thing else that anybody would like to discuss? New business, anything? All right, well, I want to just thank Representative Ting, Representative Barnes. I know we're going to thank you again before the full board. Also Representative Mayer, who's been a regular member of this committee, for your amazing work here. And I'm so grateful to have gotten to work with you on this committee and as a colleague on the board. So thank you all for participating and coming out on your last committee meeting to keep us at quorum. So thank you both, and we'll see you at the board meeting, of course. And can I get a motion to adjourn from anyone?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I think it would be fitting if you seconded that motion, Representative Barnes, so you can close this out then, the two students. He may not be able to come off mute. I'll second it then, so I'll
Second
second.
and third and fourth.
We got Representative Barnes for a second to adjourn. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, okay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all, and have a good rest of your day.